This week, the attorneys general of nearly half the states in America weighed in on an extremely important case that's actually headed to the U.S. Supreme Court. It regards whether sitting presidents can be prosecuted for official actions that are conducted while in office. Well, just yesterday, about 18 states filed an amicus brief in Trump v. the United States. And this comes just one day after Alaska, Ohio, and Wyoming likewise filed an amicus brief in the case that's going to be heard by the Supreme Court next month. So why is this such a significant case, which it is? Well, joining me now to discuss this is Ohio Attorney General Dave Yost. General Yost, welcome back to Washington Watch. Always an honor to have you.
Thank you.
All right, so let's begin with this. There's probably some who are watching or listening right now who may not be familiar with this case. So give us a little bit of background and why this is such an important issue.
Well, this is about the case that has been brought against former President Trump by special counsel Jack Smith. The president raised a defense of immunity in the trial court. The trial judge said, no, you're not immune, and he appealed, and then appealed the judgment of the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals. So here we are on an emergency appeal to the United States Supreme Court, arguing about whether a president taking actions related to his office during his time in office could be criminally prosecuted for that. As we'll see in our conversation, there's some real problems with asserting that the president is just like a common person on the street.
Yeah, and a matter of fact, that's why the Constitution gives one provision for that. It's called impeachment, if there's problems while in office. But this is a whole nother level that we're going to, what you're describing here. So tell us what you and your counterparts are arguing here.
So we're on the other side of Jack Smith. We take slightly different legal approaches to it, but we both argue that the president has vast immunity for for actions that he takes while in office. I mean, think about it. If every time you have to make a decision in the Oval Office, you have to get an army of lawyers together and debate it endlessly, the moment is going to pass. My brief with the other two states argue particularly that you should look to how close is this to an Article II presidential power, and how urgent are the circumstances to determine what kind of the outer limits of that immunity would be.
I think that is an excellent point and gives a little bit of an understanding, I think, for people to see the gravity of this. If a president is in a situation where every single move they make potentially is going to face a criminal charge, which in this political environment these days, that's not out of the question at all, then it can really paralyze the president from doing the job that he's there to do. So another question that I'm hearing, an issue, probably a better way of saying it, is the timing of all of this, that it looks as though there's a political motivation. I'll just put it out there that the timing of this whole prosecution is politically motivated. How does that play into this whole issue, do you think?
Well, I think it's an important consideration. I mean, the fact of the matter is, this is on an emergency pretrial appeal. That's very unusual. Most cases go up to the Supreme Court after the trial court's already done and the appeals court gets to review everything. And then if it even gets to the Supreme Court, and maybe 50 cases a year are all we're talking about, then they hear it. Well, we haven't even impaneled a jury here, and the Supreme Court's hearing it. Well, why is that? in significant part because Jack Smith is pushing for a quick resolution to this case. In addition, he waited a long time. This case wasn't indicted for several years after the occurrence of very public events that were in the indictment. And a lot of folks are scratching their head and saying, well, wait a second, why all the rush now? Why didn't you bring this in 2021 or 2022? There's a fair question there, but that also illustrates why this is so important. Up till now, presidents have never gotten prosecuted. And I mean, if you think about the Andrew Jackson, the Indian Removal Act and the Trail of Tears, nobody remotely talked about the idea that his actions, which if they had been undertaken by a criminal or by an individual might have been criminal, nobody ever prosecuted that. Or even talked about it, or FDR ordered all the Japanese Americans rounded up and put into internment camps during World War II. Nobody dreamed that he could be constitutionally liable for that act, even though I think today most of us would look and say, that was a terrible thing to do to fellow citizens and violated their constitutional rights. If an individual person had done it, that would have been kidnapping and false imprisonment, and you could have been prosecuted for it. But nobody talked about prosecuting presidents in this kind of a way until Jack Smith and until Donald Trump. Well, like Goethe said about the Sorcerer's Apprentice, the spirits he has summoned he cannot now contain.
Wow. Well, Attorney General, I wish we had more time to talk. Unfortunately, we have run out of time in this segment. Would love to be able to get you back and go further into this because it is a huge issue, and it's going to the Supreme Court right now. Attorney General Dave Yost, Ohio, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us today on Washington Watch.